Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CoculesNation. My name is Secret Agent Nixon Cocules. I'm the founder and the director of the Cocules Industries Spy Network and the CoculesNation. This is a redo of a video I did last week in which I was actually doing an intermediate to advanced version of Naomi Brockwell's fantastic tutorial on privacy for beginners. Now, if you wanted to look into this and you stumbled upon the video after watching Naomi's video on it, then welcome to the free software side. Naomi, if you're watching this, I posted it last week, but it was complete garbage as a result of that huge editing mistake I made. This is the second version, if you will, so my apologies if I annoy you. That said, though, we're going to go ahead and get straight into it. Now, you'll see that operating systems were not mentioned. It's not even the web browser you have to worry about necessarily. It is the operating system. What I would do, I did it cold turkey in 2020. In fact, I didn't even put Windows on this here host machine. I never did that. I would recommend if you build a new computer, you do not put Windows on it. No Windows, no Mac, none of that. Not even Atlas OS or Revi OS, which I heard can increase Windows privacy. It's still Windows. It's garbage. Don't use it. Instead, you need a GNU Linux operating system that you can set up. I have multiple tutorials on this on CoculesNation, which you can take a look at below. That said, I have 5 operating systems, 2 Ubuntu-based, 1 Fedora-based, and 2 Arch-based, depending on your experience with computers and computer software. Now, if you are a complete newbie, a complete baby to GNU Linux operating systems, I would recommend taking a look at the Ubuntu bases, which are Linux Mint and Pop! OS. Let's start with Mint first. This is the most popular Linux distribution of all time. It is an Ubuntu-based operating system, pretty good for beginners if you ask me. It has pretty much everything you need out of the box. It will come with LibreOffice pre-installed by default. You can do a lot of gaming when you set that up. It will come with Firefox though. I personally would recommend you do not use Firefox. I will explain that when I get to the web browser section. You can do some multimedia stuff as long as you have the multimedia codecs installed. And of course, you can do some graphic design. Mint is designed to be a general purpose operating system. And it's been like that ever since its beginnings, even though Mint is completely different from Ubuntu in that it doesn't have snaps. Pop also doesn't have snaps. Pop is for those who really are in the scientific field, but also for creative professionals. I'd be considered a creative professional, so in my opinion, I would probably take a look into Pop if you are a gamer, a content creator, or if you're in the sciences. Mint, if you set it up, can also be just as good as Pop. That said though, you may be asking, Nixendoig, Mint and Pop look really good, but I don't want an Ubuntu base. I want something else. If you want a Fedora base, really your only option is going to end up being Nubara Project, which is designed for content creators and gamers. This is a fork of Fedora, which apparently is doing some AI shenanigans, again, from what Dio Titus had notified us about. Long story short, Fedora is doing AI garbage. Okay, they're gonna be implementing AI, which it depends on the situation, but if you can leverage it privately, locally, that I am all in for. Hey, I've been doing prompt engineering for a little bit, so I would know what that's like. That said, this is a fork of Fedora designed by Thomas Kreider, better known as Gloria's Egg Roll. Now, if you didn't want an Ubuntu base in Mint or Pop or any other Ubuntu base, or you didn't want Nubara or Fedora base, nor did you even want a Debian base, which is what LMDE is for, LMDE is Linux Mint Debian Edition, your other options are the likes of Gentoo. You could do Alpine, but really, Arch is where it's at. The Arch-like operating systems, or the Arch-based operating systems, are going to be the likes of Arco Linux, which I have done a tutorial on, and that's the same with CachyOS. Now, if you want my opinion, for general creatives and developers and whatnot, Arco may be a good option for you. But if you are a content creator or, again, a creative who really needs the optimized speed and you want it to be nice and quick, CachyOS is going to be your best option. Cachy is an Arch-based distribution designed for not only speed, but again, it's just a beginner Arch. You'll have a beginner Arch experience. And same with Arco as well, but with Arco, you can actually seriously customize it. I'm not joking. I think you could even go down to, I think Arco Linux D, wasn't it? I think you could go to D. Oh, here we go. Yeah, we got something. We got Arco Plasma, Arco Pro, Arco Net, Professional, so there's all that. Then there's a advanced version of it. Here we go. We got Arco Linux D. I think D is the one that you can really customize. So it's essentially Arch. So there's that. If you want, you can just do CachyOS. Now, if you want a desktop environment or a point and click environment, I would call it, don't use KDE, don't use GNOME. Those two are garbage. Okay? I get it. KDE is extremely nice, but they're using KDE 6, not KDE 5, Plasma 5. Plasma is encrapified. It's been encrapified. GNOME has its own issues, but they are stable for Wayland if you're going to use Wayland. Don't use Wayland. I wouldn't use Wayland. It's absolute garbage for prime time by design. Use X11 and use something like XFCE. Cinnamon is my recommendation of choice. There are some others that are X11 based, but they're slowly moving towards Wayland, and Wayland is going to be the future. If the people behind Wayland can actually get their act together. That said, though, that doesn't matter. Now you have the operating system chosen. You need web browsers. Don't use Firefox, don't use Chrome, and don't use proprietary Chromium-based browsers. These are extremely bad for your privacy, and you give a lot of control to Google, an advertisement company, with a lot of different services on the side. So your only option, really, will be the likes of a Firefox-based engine. So that'll be LibreWolf, Florp, Pulse Browser, it'll be Midori next generation, it'll end up being the likes of IceCat if you want an ESR base, FireDragon if you want something based on Florp, and many other Firefox-based browsers that are vetted and have been around for some amount of time. A good amount of time, usually about a year or two, I would say. Otherwise, no, don't use it. LibreWolf has been around for a long time, but some people think there are some problems with LibreWolf, which are valid concerns. But if you know what you're doing on some other hardware, that's some advanced stuff I'm not going to get into today. If you know what you're doing and trying to keep yourself safe on the internet, you should be fine for the most part. But you may be asking, Nixendoig, give me a Chromium base. What's the Chromium base you would recommend if you don't recommend Chrome or Vivaldi or Opera? None of that. Your only option is actually going to end up being the Brave browser. It's essentially the LibreWolf for Chromium-based browsers. I use Brave only for watching YouTube. That's it. Nothing else. And I don't even watch YouTube with an account. That's the thing. Thank goodness for AdGuard. Not sponsored. But I use AdGuard DNS for that. Anyway, if you want to know which browsers are the best, you can take a look at privacytests.org, which basically gives you a lot of information on which browsers are some of the best that you can do. And your best options are going to be Brave, LibreWolf, Mullvad, and Tor. Think of Mullvad as Tor for the ClearNet. or basically not .onion sites. Now you've chosen your browser, you've chosen your operating system, now you need a search engine. 90% of people use Google. Ditch it. Ditch Google and don't fall for DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo has been confirmed. There's a lot of data supporting this. DuckDuckGo has grabbed a lot of data from users in 2021. What are your options in terms of search engines? I have two options. CIRCSN, I'm using Polygo as my instance of choice, and FreeSearch, a decentralized search engine. Polygo is also CIRCSN based. That is actually a decentralized search engine. CIRCSN is based upon the original Circs, which is no longer in production. This is the new Circs. FreeSearch, I think, is proprietary. However, they do have some shenanigans that they're doing, even though they've got some crypto stuff over here. If you're not into the crypto stuff, you don't have to use it. Your best bet would probably be a Circs instance. Now, there are some other engines like SwissCows I've been known to use. Mojik is actually a good browser. I think it is a good browser engine, if I'm not mistaken. Or who cares? Okay, it's getting kind of late, as you can see. There are a few search engines that are good. Metagare. I wouldn't use anything based upon Google, so Startpage is a no-go for me because, again, it piggybacks off of Google. DuckDuckGo piggybacks off of Bing. I wouldn't do that either, especially with the AI stuff that it's gonna do. It's just no. Your best options are CIRCSN, FreeSearch, maybe Brave, but I wouldn't trust Brave either right now because of some weird stuff going on and some shady individuals that are tied to Brave right now. So who knows? Although the current CEO of Brave was actually the CEO of Mozilla, and yeah, he's absolutely destroyed Mozilla, deservedly so. Anyway, you have your search engine, you have your operating system, you have your web browser. Now, the messengers. These specific messengers are the ones that seem to be the most recommended, which are Signal, Threema, Wire, Session, and Simplex. The only issues is that Simplex is based in the UK, Signal is American, Threema is actually based in Switzerland, and they got some interesting laws. And there's a whole butt ton of different ones. For example, with Signal, you just need the mandatory requirement for mobile phone numbers removed. You've got all of this stuff here. Server code is actually closed source for some reason. Weird. Wire, there's a metadata storage and logging thing that's happening right now. Session is decentralized. However, with Session, they were originally in Australia, but they moved to Switzerland because of some anti-encryption laws that passed over there. And Simplex, think of Simplex as a decentralized Signal. You can take a look at this entire document here, and you'll know exactly what the whole deal is, how good they actually are. Quite a few of these are bad. Messages, iMessage, Messenger, even Matrix with Element. There are other Matrix clients. I use Element a lot, but I never send any pictures necessarily. I don't usually do that. Plus, I don't use matrix.org, which this individual who made the secure messaging apps spreadsheet over here, I don't think he's really gotten himself into Matrix too much. That's not a big deal if you ask me, because it's federated and decentralized. So I'm fine with that. Hey, at least you can use Matrix as an alternative for Discord. I have Discord alternatives that I also use. But yeah, we've got all this stuff here. Next is going to be your email. Naomi recommended two services. One of them I personally use. The other one is in a nice country, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. The one I'd recommend, though, is Proton. Now, it's very divisive. Okay, it's very divisive because of the position Andy Yen is in, who's the current CEO of Proton. Apparently, he wasn't at CERN when Proton was started, and this was started by former CERN scientists who wanted to help with privacy protection, but of course, someone had to ruin it. Allegedly ruin it. Who knows though? But Proton, I personally use Proton for email. I've been known to use their VPN, which is one of three I would recommend. TechLore recommends 4 VPNs, the fourth being Windscribe. I wouldn't recommend Windscribe because it's actually Canadian VPN and it's Five Eyes. If it's Five Eyes, don't use it. Even if it's open source, even if it's under a free software license, don't use anything from Five Eyes. It has to be vetted, it has to be properly audited by an independent, professional third party, and of course, it has to be free software. If it doesn't fit any of those boxes, I'm not using it. Proton, Molvad, and iVPN are pretty much your best options. Though Molvad had partnered with Obscura VPN, which is a relatively new VPN that hadn't been audited yet. So I don't trust Obscura right now, but maybe Molvad had. They've already gone ahead and done something with them, maybe audited them. I'm not entirely sure. But Proton, Molvad, and iVPN are going to be your best options if you want basically resistance to online surveillance, which is extremely garbage if you don't have a VPN. A lot of people are not going to know this. But that is my intermediate version of Naomi's fantastically researched video on privacy essentials for beginners. Now, there are going to be a couple of things that you're going to want to be aware of if you use GNU Linux operating systems. Not all of your Windows apps are going to work with Wine, or if you want to pay for it, Crossover. Crossover is basically an upgraded Wine, but designed with, I think, more compatibility in mind. I just use regular Wine to be fair. And if you want to do gaming, you're going to have to use something like ProtonDB to know which games work. And you're going to have to do a lot of research on the games you want to play. Because there are a lot of games with these pieces of malware that they call anti-cheats. It's malware. It's malware. With the exception of potentially EAC and BattlEye, which you can sandbox if you're playing Steam games that actually support either or. That said though, I think I'm actually going to do for this video. Thank you, and good night.